Hi, this is Dave Scott with the Earth Native Wilderness School. Today we're going to talk about fire making using only minimal materials. We're not going to use external or modern fuel sources, just sticks and bark and things you'll find out inside in the woods. So let's talk about a few different fire lighting methods. Obviously lighters are awesome because it's the whole package and we can just push the button and the flame comes up. Some of the disadvantages with lighters obviously are that since it's mechanical it can fail. So if part of the lighter fails in here, like the striking mechanism, then you don't have any way to get a spark and you potentially can't get the lighter to light. Also, I've been in situations before where I've been extremely cold, like hypothermic, and I haven't been able to actually operate the lighter just because I didn't have enough dexterity in my fingers to run the top of the lighter. For that reason, I prefer lighters that are just push button lighters where you don't have to actually rake your finger across the top. Obviously the disadvantage there is that there's one more little mechanical part in this lighter that could fail. I prefer strike anywhere matches just because if you need to strike them somewhere off the box, then that's an option. The difference between a strike anywhere match and another match is that the strike anywhere match has both of the chemicals that are needed to ignite the match on the head of the match, and then the side of the box is essentially just an abrasive, versus a match that's not strike anywhere has one of the chemicals on the box and one of the chemicals on the match. So if you don't have the box, you can't light the match. So you do have to practice a lot with matches just because the wind can blow them out pretty easy, and also the disadvantage to matches is that if they get wet, then you have issues with them lighting. Flint and steel. I have a cool knife here that has a ferrocerium rod, and this is often called a flint and steel. Obviously this is not flint, this is ferrocerium. So it's a chemical, makes a really hot spark. So essentially we have sparks and we're going to light a fire with that. It works great. Often you need dry, fluffy material to get it to work, so it's not the most efficient method. Obviously it's definitely not as efficient or as good as matches or a lighter. However, the positive is it doesn't matter if it gets wet, it doesn't matter what happens to it. It's not any kind of mechanical thing. It's still going to work always. Lastly, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about actual primitive flint and steel, where we just have a piece of steel and we have a flint, and we're going to start a little fire with that. So now let's talk a little bit about different materials that we can use to light fires. One really good material to light fires is tinder. Tinder is really fluffy material that has a lot of surface area that will burn really well. And in this case we have some juniper bark that's been shredded up. It was really easy to make. It's really easy to pull off the tree. In fact, juniper bark you can pull off a live tree. And this is the inner bark, not the cambium layer, but the inner bark, and that's really great for lighting fires, especially in dry conditions or when the tinder itself is dry. The next thing is kindling, which is just essentially really small sticks. So the size of the kindling can vary depending on what your needs are and what the weather conditions are like, but we're talking about really small sticks. The advantage to kindling over tinder is that tinder is much more susceptible to moisture. So anything that's really fluffy, that's not dense, is going to soak up a lot of water. So this is just like a sponge, and if it gets wet, it's really useless, versus something with that's a little bit more dense like kindling is not going to absorb as much water, and if the conditions are really bad, this is going to be a much better fire lighting material than wet tinder. Now I just wanted to demo for you the ferrocerium rod striker and the primitive flint and steel, just to show you how that works. We'll start with the primitive flint and steel. So you just have a little small piece of flint and a little piece of carbon steel. Basically you're striking the flint and little sparks are coming off, and those little sparks are essentially little shavings of this metal that are sparking off, and they're burning for just a split second. So we need a really good material to catch that little spark, and we're going to use charred cloth or charred cotton. Essentially, if you just have like a little tin and you poke a little hole in it, or if you have like an Altoids tin, you can use that, and you just fill it up with a cotton t-shirt or something like that, cotton balls or whatever, and you throw it in the fire, and just what happens is it burns inside, but it can't completely burn up because there's not enough oxygen, so it just carbonizes it. So essentially we have like a pure carbon cloth here that will really catch a spark and hold it really well. And then this little spark or this little cloth burning, then we would transfer that to a fluffy tinder bundle and get that to blow into flames. So you want to hold the char cloth directly over on top of the little piece of flint or chert, and then you want to strike this on a sharp edge at about 90-degree angle or straight up and down. If you're not getting a lot of sparks, you have to practice this. This takes a little bit of practice to get a lot of sparks, and it's not immediate. Usually it takes a couple of sparks hitting. So now we have a spark that hit the charred cloth, and it's smoldering now. So that's all it took, was one little tiny spark. Obviously this isn't a fire. Then we'd transfer this into our little tinder bundle. You'd probably want to use a bigger tinder bundle than this. And we have our flame, and then we would just then use that as the basis to start our fire. So the ferrocerium rod, like I said, that I have is just in the butt of this knife, and this is a cool knife by Mora and Light My Fire. What you do need to strike this is some type of a squared edge. So a lot of times they use broken hacksaw blades, but if you have a knife with a squared edge, that's what you need. So since this is a lot hotter spark, this spark is capable of lighting something a lot easier than the primitive flint and steel. So we can actually light the tinder itself just with the ferrocerium. So you can't really do that with the primitive flint and steel. But you just want to strike directly into the tinder. There we go. Alright, so pretty simple, but it does take some practice, and sometimes you need to work on it a little bit before you can get it. Another thing, you can use Vaseline soaked cotton balls. You can buy something like this at the store, but it's really easy to make these. One of these Vaseline cotton balls will burn for about 10 minutes, and that's a really great fire starter. Know that if you put these in your survival pack or something, that you need to seal it up really well, otherwise you'll end up with Vaseline all over the inside of your pack, which isn't too fun. So this, like I said, this will burn for about 10 minutes, and obviously the bigger the cotton ball, the longer it'll burn. All right, now let's get into fire building basics. We're going to use some matches to light this fire, but I also just want to address lighters, and also know that all of these principles can be applied to whatever flame you have. It's just really to address, you have a flame now, how do you get the fire going? In fact, if you have a flaming tinder bundle, that's actually a much better scenario because you have a sustained flame than if you just have a match, which the match isn't going to last that long and it's not generating that much heat. So I think it's really good to try and practice this, to use as little matches as possible. So with the ideal being that you get everything ready to light your fire, and then you just use one match. In fact, it's kind of a red flag when I see people just lighting match after match after match. If that's happening, then something's not right with your materials, and you need to stop. Instead of just continuing to light matches and matches and matches, stop, adjust your materials, figure out what the problem is, and then start again. One of the most important things when you're starting a fire with only natural materials, and this is also one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is to start really, really small. So a match is not generating that much heat, and it's not really capable of lighting something that's much larger than itself in diameter. So if you're trying to light larger sticks with a match, it's just not going to work. So what we have to do is we have to build the fire up slowly. We've got gathered here a bundle of sticks that are about maybe pencil lead size. Really, ideally, they're the smallest sticks that you can find. And all we're asking the match to do is light these sticks. Now these sticks are going to build a little flame, and then we're going to ask these sticks to light these sticks, which are about like half pencil size. And then the half pencil size sticks are going to build up enough flame to light these pencil size sticks, which are in turn going to light larger and larger sticks. So there's a whole layering system. We're not asking these little sticks to light big logs. We're just asking these little sticks to light the next layer up. And so it slowly builds up until we are, have the fire going well with the bigger logs. When you light these little sticks, I think one really important thing to remember is that fire burns up. So you don't want to try and light something from the top. If you try and light it from the top, then really there's no fuel for the fire to burn up into. So you either want to light it from the bottom or you want to light it from the ends. And another issue that people often have is when you have this little bundle here of sticks, is keeping it all together. So a really cool trick
is to take something, it could even be like unnatural cord, like a paracord or parachute cord or something, and bundle up your sticks so that they stay together. Now, I will caution you that if you bundle it too tight, then it won't burn. But we're going to try and get the ends kind of even here, and we're going to light the ends here. And then remember, you need to let the flame build a little bit. So when you're lighting the match, you want to protect the match from the wind, and you want to let it build on the match a little bit before you try and light the bundle. You want to hold the bundle upside down and let it build a little bit so that the heat, when you set it down, it continues to flame. And then we're going to slowly start building on this fire. So this is a method that you can use. You know, when you're first lighting your fire, it's really, really delicate. Like any little bit of gust of wind or any, you know, motion where the fire gets knocked you know, apart or something is going to put it out. Once you get a really good bed of coals, it's not going to be any problem if it rains or whatever, but you need to be really careful when you're doing this early stage. So you're going to see I'm really gentle with it, and I'm just going to put the sticks on just a few at a time. So if you're using a lighter, it's important that you're not holding the lighter on too long. A lighter is not a replacement for a match in that it lasts longer. Right? A match might burn for 5 or 6 seconds. You really don't want to hold your lighter on much longer than that. So again, if you're holding your lighter for minutes, you know, then there's an issue with your material. It's not necessarily an issue with your lighter. So stop again and intervene there. So I also recommend that you practice lighting matches in different ways, these Strike Anywhere matches, whether it be on a zipper or on an axe head or on a rock. But also another cool method is lighting them on themselves. So if you just kind of scrape the two tips of the matches together, you can light one match on another match. We're going to light the ends of the fire, or the ends of this bundle. We're letting it build up. So I don't want to set this down yet because it's still just burning on the end, and I really want it to burn up into the material that I provided. So I'm going to let it burn a little while. I'm going to actually kind of rotate it around a little bit, keeping that fire on the bottom. Then once I feel comfortable that it's going well, then I'll set it down and start building on top of it. Okay, so now we've got this next size up sticks. We're just going to set those on, and I actually am a big fan of just setting these sticks on kind of one at a time at the beginning until you get this thing going. And wherever the fire is burning is where you want to build. So if the fire is burning on an end, then you want to build, put your sticks directly over the fire. If you need to, you can come in here and give it a little breath of air to get it going again when it starts to Okay, you can see it as we're adding sticks to the fire. The shape is naturally wanting to be like the shape of a teepee, and that is really the best, most efficient way to start a fire. So you can see that it's building up into a teepee, and I want to continue that by laying sticks on at an angle and keep it going. You'll see that the fire naturally will start to kind of implode on itself, where the inner sticks burning and collapsing and the outer sticks collapsing, and that's totally okay. What we really want is we're starting to build up a bed of coals, and as the bed of coals gets bigger and bigger, the fire will be much more sustaining. Now these are kind of varied size, so I'm just going to pick through these and put on the smaller ones first. This is all really dead, dry wood. It's really important that you're not picking up or gathering live green wood for your fire. And in the wintertime, it can actually be challenging to figure out what's dead and what's alive. Generally, if you break something and it snaps, then it's dead. Also, if you look inside of a branch, even in the winter, there's often a little bit of green cambium if it's a living branch. But you want to make sure that you're not putting live green wood on the fire. So you can see the fire's really going now. I have a rule that you should probably follow regarding the density. A stick will only light another stick if it's about the same distance away as its own diameter. So if these two sticks are this close together, they'll light each other. If they're this far apart, they won't. So you want to have a density of your fire structure that allows the fire to spread and move through the sticks as it goes. If you don't pull the extra branches off of sticks and they're really fluffy, kind of like just have a bunch of extra small branches coming off of them, then that will create too much space. So you really want the sticks to be processed down to where there's not a whole lot of branching going on. But you also want to remember that we discussed, fuel is important. So when we're talking about the sticks being close enough together, we're addressing fuel. But if it's too crazy dense, if you pack these sticks in there too much and you don't give any space, then there won't be enough oxygen, and that can actually put the fire out as well. So fuel, oxygen, and now obviously this fire is generating a lot of heat. And as we continue to build it up, it's going to just keep generating more and more. When you're building up this teepee, also you want to try and make sure that you are putting the larger branches on pretty evenly. It can cause the whole structure to collapse if you have too much weight on any one side. And that's not that big of a deal. At this point, the fire is going well enough to where if this teepee collapses, it's not going to go out. But it's just better to wait a little bit longer before you let the teepee collapse. This is going to naturally want to collapse in on itself, and at some point we're going to need to kind of facilitate that, because we have these smaller branches in the middle and we have these larger logs on the outside. And what can happen is that the center of the fire burns out and it's gone. The fuel from the center of the fire is gone and there's not a good bed of coals, and then the outer logs are not sustaining yet. So if that happens, you'll see it's kind of like a hollow teepee, and at that point, before that happens, you actually need to knock it down to recompress all the materials and keep that density in the fire structure. As this burns out, we're going to kind of push it down a little bit, and then we'll just build a new teepee on top of that. And then once we get a really good solid bed of coals, then we can pretty much throw whatever we want on it, and it's going to burn it just because it's going to have sustaining heat from those coals. All right, so now you can see the fire is pretty raging. Even still, this fire has not been burning that long. It's still susceptible to rain and things like that. What we really want is we want these larger logs to get going well before we really feel like this fire is sustaining itself. Another thing to keep in mind is not all wood is created equal. So softer woods like pine are going to burn really hot and really fast, and they're not going to develop really large coal bed like your hardwoods like oak, and we've got some mesquite in here, or pecan or something like that is going to develop really big coals, and it's going to burn more slowly and also not as hot. The fire structure just fell, which is okay again, but now we need to readjust it. So we need to kind of reorganize things to where we have the sticks are really making good contact with that hot coal bed that we have started to develop. And then we're just going to come back in here and just build up some other sticks on the outside of this. All right, just like that, everything is going well now. The larger sticks are burning. We've got some pretty good sized coals, maybe about the size of my thumb. Eventually we want some big coals, like either the size of my fist or half the size of my fist, and then I'll feel really good about this going. Healthy fire is not going to be bothered by things like rain or something like that. So you could, if you get a really hot fire going and you get a good coal bed, even rain is going to not bother it, because the rain around it is going to evaporate before it actually hits the fire. The only problem you'll have with rain is if you've built your fire in a depression and rainwater comes in from the sides. So if rain comes in from the sides and puts your coal bed out, then that can destroy even a really good fire. So even if that were to happen, where you were to build your fire in a little depression and the rainwater started to puddle, you'd want to immediately build some kind of little swale with dirt or something to get that rainwater to stay off of your fire. Okay, now I want to show you a couple of cool methods. One is called the frayed stick method. It's basically like if you have split kindling. This wood I just split out with a small hatchet. That's medium soft wood. I'm just going to come through here, and this takes a little bit of control and a sharp knife, but I'm going to fray this stick. What I'm doing here is I'm just creating a lot of surface area. Now I'm not creating wood chips. I mean, some of these might bust off, but really I'm trying to create a fraying of the stick. And if I have a few chips, that's fine. But really, I want to keep the frayed part on the stick if I can. And we're creating a lot of surface area for this flame to catch. All right, so now that we have these sticks frayed, we're going to set these little shavings to the side, and I'm just going to pick up one of these frayed sticks and I'm going to use that to light. So this should light up really easy because it's really dry and we've got a lot of surface area, and these sticks are close together. So the reason a match doesn't burn as well is it's only burning on itself, whereas these are playing off of each other. Then we're going to light these other frayed sticks that we've got here. Might light it in a couple of different spots. Now here's the trick with this, is you've got to have a bunch of little kindling ready. And I know that I told you that TP is the best method. With this, we're going to kind of do a hybrid TP, hybrid log cabin. So I'm going to put some sticks to either side and kind of sandwich this flame that I've got going here. And then I'm going to put some of these smaller ones up on top just to keep this going. I'm going to build like a little log cabin structure over it. And I'm going to need to put a few of these shavings on here to keep this healthy. Now once that happens, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start stacking these sticks around the edges. And I'm going to use this little log cabin to support. So now I'm going to start spiraling around. And what this does is it keeps everything really dense. So as I'm spiraling this around, you can see that everything is supported by the under layer. Everything's pretty close together, so the fire doesn't have to jump very far from stick to stick. You can see as I start to spiral around, it starts to support on itself and it creates a teepee, but it has a really good solid center. And wood that is split like this is always going to burn better than wood that is just in a full-size branch or log. You get these corners and edges, so when you split something, you get a lot more surface area and you get these sharp edges, and those burn really well than if you have something that's rounded. So having a hatchet in a survival situation can be a huge advantage, because you're able to split wood, especially if wood is wet. If it's been raining, a lot of times the inside of the wood is not really that wet, but the outside is, so you can split out and get into that really dry inner wood. So that's building a teepee method with kindling, the Dave Scott way. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about building a fire structure in advance. So the real advantage here comes in the fact that when I put a match in here, it's going to immediately start burning and it's going to trap heat, and it's going to start really well on its own. If you had dry wood and you set this up and then it rained, this would actually shed water, and so it would keep the inside a lot drier than if you just had the wood sitting on the ground. If you build this wrong, then it can fail, right, epically. So essentially when we built this, what I did was I started using the really small sticks like I taught you before, and I just built it up layer by layer all the way out to the larger sticks. And I would even put on larger sticks still and keep building this all the way out. I've seen fires like this lit with several cords of wood and one match. You can put a little bit of bark, tinder in there if you need to, and then work your way out, and don't skip stages of sticks. So just going to take the match and just one match in the bottom here. Once you get it lit, we're going to close off this door with some more sticks. Now this teepee structure, since it's built pretty straight up, is going to fall over after several minutes, and that's okay. Remember, once a teepee naturally falls over, just be ready to put more sticks on top of it.
The first thing that we always have to remember is that we have to have at least something on there to be able to sight. It's not Kentucky windage where the guys in the Old West used to just look down their barrels and just hope that they were going to get something that was going to work.